Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a question that may disturb you. Why is it that the more kind you are, the more some people seem to take you for granted? Why is it that the very heart of compassion can sometimes invite dishonor? Kindness is not weakness. Though many people confuse the two because they cannot distinguish between genuine compassion and passive surrender. To be kind is to extend grace, patience, and love even when the world offers you bitterness in return. Weakness, on the other hand, is the inability to stand for what is right or to protect your own dignity when it is being violated. The danger comes when kindness is mistaken for weakness, and when people believe that a gentle spirit means an empty spine. True kindness demands a strength that most people cannot even fathom, because it requires you to remain calm when others are angry, to forgive when others hold grudges, and to give when others only take. It is not the act of bowing down to be trampled on, but the act of rising above insult, betrayal, and injustice without letting bitterness poison your heart. When someone chooses kindness, it is not because they are powerless, but because they are powerful enough to control their response. Weakness reacts. Kindness responds with purpose. Weakness is forced by circumstance. Kindness is a decision born out of discipline and vision. It takes greater strength to bless someone who has cursed you than to curse them back, because the natural impulse of the weak is retaliation. The strong choose kindness, not because they are incapable of fighting back, but because they refuse to reduce themselves to the level of pettiness. This is why kindness is a reflection of mastery over self. You must possess control over your words, your emotions, and your choices to be consistently kind in a world that will test you every day. However, the problem arises when others interpret this as an open invitation to abuse. People think that because you do not shout, you cannot stand. They assume that because you forgive, you can be taken advantage of again. They interpret your silence as ignorance, when in truth it is wisdom keeping you from unnecessary battles. Many people would rather be feared than respected, but the truly great understand that kindness wins battles that intimidation never could. Fear demands obedience, but kindness earns loyalty. Weakness is exploited, but kindness is admired in the long run. The courage to be kind is proof of an inner security that does not need validation from the applause of others. A weak person begs for recognition and compromises themselves to be accepted. But a kind person remains secure even when they are rejected. They know that their worth is not determined by how others treat them, but by the character they choose to uphold. That is why kindness can never be weakness, because weakness depends on the approval of men, while kindness draws from the conviction of the heart. What many fail to realize is that kindness has a backbone. It knows when to step back, when to say no, and when to stop giving to those who abuse generosity. To be kind is not to be foolish. It is to discern who deserves your time and who only drains it. Weakness pours out of fear, but kindness flows out of wisdom. Weakness allows others to walk over you because you are afraid to lose them. Kindness chooses to walk away from those who cannot value you, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Kindness is not weakness because it requires strength to rise above offense, patience to endure misunderstanding, and discernment to know when to extend grace and when to draw the line. It is a gift of the strong, not a sign of the fragile. It carries the quiet confidence of those who know who they are and who refuse to let the cruelty of others change the goodness within them. Boundaries create respect, because they communicate value, discipline, and clarity about who you are and what you stand for. Without boundaries, people will interpret your openness as permission to overstep and take more than what they should. Human nature tends to test limits, and when no limits exist, people begin to treat you as though you are endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, and endlessly tolerant. The truth is that unchecked kindness without boundaries eventually turns into exhaustion and resentment. And instead of gaining respect, you lose it. Boundaries are not walls of rejection, they are fences of protection. They do not push people away, but guide them into the right way of relating to you. When you teach people how to treat you, you earn their respect. Because respect is born out of the recognition that you value yourself. A person who sets boundaries is not selfish, they are wise. They understand that time is limited, energy is limited, and peace is priceless. Without boundaries, your priorities will be hijacked by everyone else's demands, and you will find yourself living a life that does not belong to you. People will only respect your time if you respect it first. They will only respect your no if you are willing to say it firmly and consistently. Respect does not come from giving everyone what they want. It comes from standing firm in what you know is right, even if it disappoints others. Boundaries create a line that distinguishes kindness from naivety, generosity from exploitation, and patience from foolishness. Too many people lose respect, not because they are unworthy of it, but because they fail to establish boundaries that guard their dignity. When you allow people to constantly interrupt your focus, invade your peace, or abuse your generosity, you train them to believe that you have no limits. But when you calmly and consistently enforce boundaries, people may resist at first, but eventually they adjust. And once they adjust, they begin to view you with new eyes. They may not always like it, but they will respect it, because respect is always connected to clarity. Boundaries are not just about keeping others in check, they are also about keeping yourself in order. When you set boundaries, you remind yourself of your own value, your own priorities, and your own responsibility to protect what matters most in your life. You cannot expect others to prioritize your peace if you do not protect it yourself. You cannot expect others to value your presence if you make yourself cheaply available. Respect begins within, and boundaries are the outer reflection of inner respect. The stronger your sense of self-worth, the firmer your boundaries will be, and the more others will recognize and honor them. There is also a spiritual and emotional dimension to boundaries. When you guard your time, your energy, and your relationships, you protect the vision and purpose of your life. Every yes you give without wisdom is a no to something that truly matters. Every boundary you fail to set is an open door to distraction, exploitation, or abuse. People will test your boundaries not because they are evil, but because human nature is opportunistic. It is your responsibility to hold the line. The moment you compromise out of fear of rejection, you surrender respect. But the moment you stand firm, even in discomfort, you gain respect, because people admire those who are clear about who they are and what they stand for. Boundaries create respect because they separate strength from weakness, clarity from confusion, and value from exploitation. They teach people that you are not to be taken for granted, that your time is meaningful, and that your presence has worth. Those who truly belong in your life will never be driven away by your boundaries. They will be drawn closer by them, because respect deepens love, and honor strengthens relationships. People don't respect what they can abuse because human nature is inclined to undervalue what comes too easily or without cost. When people realize they can continuously take from you without consequence, their sense of appreciation diminishes, and what was once seen as generosity becomes seen as an entitlement. This is why so many individuals who are endlessly giving and endlessly forgiving often find themselves dishonored rather than admired. Respect is tied to recognition of value, and value is recognized when there are limits, boundaries, and standards that make people realize that what you give is not cheap. If you make yourself too accessible, too available, or too forgiving without wisdom, people will no longer see your actions as kindness, but as weakness, and weakness attracts abuse. The truth is that respect grows where there is discipline. People respect what they cannot easily manipulate. They admire what they cannot easily control. When a person establishes standards for how they expect to be treated, it communicates strength, and strength commands respect. Conversely, if someone continuously tolerates mistreatment, excuses bad behavior, or allows others to overstep without correction, they are silently telling the abuser that the abuse is acceptable. In this way, a cycle begins. The more you tolerate, the less you are respected, and the less you are respected, the more you are abused. It is not always intentional cruelty. Sometimes people simply act according to the level of permission you have given them. Respect is earned not just by what you give to others, but by what you refuse to allow. To stop abuse is not unkindness, it is self-respect. People may resist when you start to enforce standards, but over time, they will adjust to the new reality. And when they adjust, they will either withdraw because they cannot exploit you anymore, or they will stay and treat you with greater honor because they finally understand your value. People do not respect what costs them nothing, and when you continually give without requiring responsibility, you strip your own kindness of its power. This principle shows up in every area of life. In relationships, when one partner continues to forgive betrayal without accountability, respect for that forgiveness fades and betrayal repeats itself. In leadership, when a manager tolerates laziness or disrespect without correction, employees lose regard for their authority. Even in family life, when parents never enforce boundaries with their children, those children grow up without respect for their parents' voice. Abuse thrives where accountability is absent, but respect grows where discipline is enforced. The reason people don't respect what they can abuse is because abuse removes the perception of worth. Think about something valuable like gold or diamonds. They are respected because they are rare, costly, and not easily accessible. If gold were as common as dirt, no one would treasure it. The same principle applies to people. If your time, energy, and kindness are treated as though they are endless and free of boundaries, others will begin to see them as cheap. But when you make it clear that your kindness is intentional, that your time is valuable, and that your forgiveness is not an invitation to continue wrong behavior, you elevate your worth in the eyes of others. The strength of your boundaries and the courage to stop abuse are what transform your kindness into respect. Without those elements, your goodness will be trampled and your compassion will be mocked. It is not enough to be good, you must also be wise. Wisdom teaches you that people will test the limits of what you allow, and it is your responsibility to demonstrate your value through the standards you enforce. When people realize they cannot abuse you, They begin to respect you. True kindness flows from strength because it requires inner stability, self-control, and courage to give without losing yourself in the process. Weakness often masquerades as kindness, but they are not the same. Weakness gives out a fear of rejection, desperation for approval, or inability to stand for oneself, while true kindness is born from a place of security, confidence, and conviction. It takes strength to be gentle in a world that glorifies aggression. It takes strength to forgive when holding a grudge feels easier. It takes strength to offer grace when bitterness seems justified. Every act of genuine kindness is not the evidence of fragility, but the evidence of power over self, emotions, and ego. When a strong person chooses kindness, it is not because they are incapable of retaliating or standing firm, but because they have the discipline to choose a higher path. It is easy to lash out when offended, but it takes strength to hold your peace. It is easy to withhold love when betrayed, but it takes strength to keep loving without allowing your heart to be poisoned. True kindness flows from strength because it requires mastery over impulses. Without mastery, what you call kindness may simply be submission to fear. But when rooted in strength, kindness becomes an intentional act that lifts both the giver and the receiver. Strength in kindness also means having the wisdom to know when to give and when to withhold. Being strong and kind does not mean saying yes to everything or tolerating disrespect. Rather, it means having the courage to say no when necessary and still doing so with grace. Weakness says yes to avoid conflict, but strength says yes or no based on principle, not pressure. A strong person is kind not because they are naive, but because they are discerning. They see the potential in people and choose to uplift rather than tear down, but they are not blind to manipulation. They can walk away when necessary, not because they lack compassion, but because they respect themselves enough to not let their kindness be abused. True kindness flowing from strength is what gives it lasting impact. When someone receives kindness from a place of strength, they feel its authenticity. It is not transactional or manipulative. It does not demand repayment or recognition. A strong person gives because they are full, not because they are empty. Their kindness is an overflow of inner abundance, not a cry for attention. People can sense when kindness is genuine, and that authenticity inspires trust, admiration, and respect. Kindness rooted in strength influences others more deeply than kindness rooted in weakness, because it carries the weight of integrity. The strength behind kindness also creates resilience. A weak form of kindness breaks under pressure, but true kindness endures trials without becoming bitter. It can be wounded but still chooses to heal rather than hate. It can be misunderstood but still refuses to harden its heart. This strength is what makes kindness a transformative power rather than a temporary gesture. It sustains relationships, builds communities, and heals divisions because it refuses to allow negativity to dictate its actions. Only a strong heart can keep pouring kindness in a world that often rewards selfishness and cruelty. True kindness flows from strength, because only strength can carry the responsibility that comes with kindness. To be kind when others are cruel, to forgive when others condemn, to love when others hate, and to keep giving when others only take requires a reservoir of strength that cannot be faked. It is the quiet, steady strength of character that chooses good, not because it is easy, but because it is right. That is why true kindness is not a weakness to be pitied, but a power to be honored. Protect your resources because everything you have been given, your time, your energy, your mind, your relationships, your finances, and even your peace is limited and valuable. Too often people waste what is precious on those who do not appreciate it, on activities that do not grow them, and on environments that drain rather than build. Resources are not just about money. Your greatest resources are the intangible ones that cannot be replaced once they are spent. Time once lost is gone forever. Energy once drained is difficult to restore, and peace once disturbed is hard to regain. Protecting your resources means guarding your life from the unnecessary, from the toxic, and from the wasteful so that you can pour into what truly matters. When you fail to protect your resources, you end up giving away your strength to people who misuse it. Not everyone who demands your time deserves it. Not everyone who asks for your energy has earned it. Not every opportunity that comes your way is worth your attention. Many people fall into the trap of scattering themselves everywhere, saying yes to every request, and stretching themselves thin until they have nothing left for themselves or the purpose they are called to fulfill. To protect your resources is to learn the power of focus and the discipline of prioritization. It is to understand that you cannot give your best to everything, so you must decide carefully where your best is required. Your resources are not only meant for survival, but also for multiplication. Whatever you have, your skills, your talents, your time, if managed well, can grow. But if wasted, they shrink. Protecting your resources is about stewardship. It is about taking responsibility for what has been entrusted to you. If you waste your energy on constant negativity, you will have none left to pursue your dreams. If you waste your finances on temporary pleasures, you will have none to invest in your future. If you waste your time with people who refuse to change, you will have none left for those who value you. Protecting your resources means recognizing their worth and guarding them from misuse. People who do not value themselves will not value you. They will keep taking as long as you keep giving, and if you are not careful, they will drain you completely. That is why boundaries are essential in protecting your resources. Saying no is not cruelty, it is wisdom. Walking away from what no longer serves your growth is not selfishness, it is clarity. Protecting your resources does not mean you stop being kind. It means your kindness is guided by wisdom. You give where there is soil to grow, not where there are holes to drain. You invest where there is potential, not where there is consistent waste. Protecting your resources also requires protecting your environment. What you listen to, who you surround yourself with, and where you spend your energy all shape the strength of your inner resources. A toxic environment will drain your peace, but a nurturing environment will multiply it. Protecting your resources is about making choices every day that honor your future instead of only satisfying your present. It is about guarding your mind from lies, your heart from bitterness, and your body from exhaustion. Protect your resources because they are the foundation of your purpose. You cannot fulfill your vision if you are constantly depleted. You cannot give to others if you are running on empty. You cannot build anything lasting if everything you have is scattered and unguarded. Your life is too valuable to waste on what does not matter. Your resources are gifts, and the wisest thing you can do is protect them fiercely, manage them wisely, and invest them where they will bear fruit. Kindness must be guided by wisdom, because without discernment, kindness can easily be misunderstood, misused, or even abused. Many people believe that kindness means giving endlessly, forgiving without accountability, or saying yes to everyone no matter the circumstance. But true kindness is not blind, it is intentional. It knows when to act, how to act, and to whom it should be extended. Wisdom is the compass that directs kindness so it produces respect, growth, and positive change rather than exploitation. Without wisdom, kindness becomes weakness, but with wisdom, kindness becomes influence. There are times when kindness is giving, and there are times when kindness is withholding. For example, enabling someone's destructive habits is not kindness, it is participation in their downfall. Wisdom teaches you that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to say no, to step back, or to allow someone to face the consequences of their actions. Parents who give their children everything they ask, for without discipline may think they are being kind, but without wisdom, they are raising entitlement rather than gratitude. Leaders who avoid correcting poor behavior in the name of kindness may believe they are keeping peace, but without wisdom, they are breeding disorder. Kindness without wisdom is not kindness at all. It is carelessness wrapped in good intentions. Wisdom gives kindness its power by aligning it with purpose. Every act of kindness should serve a higher goal, to build, to heal, to restore, or to uplift. When kindness is guided by wisdom, it creates impact that lasts. It is not about random gestures that make you feel good for a moment. It is about intentional actions that transform lives in the long run. Wisdom helps you discern the right time, the right place, and the right measure of kindness. Giving too much at the wrong time can weaken others, but giving the right thing at the right moment can strengthen them forever. Another reason kindness must be guided by wisdom is that not everyone deserves the same level of access to your resources. Some people will take and never give back. Some will manipulate your kindness to continue in their irresponsibility. Wisdom teaches you to identify who is truly in need and who is simply taking advantage. It is not unkind to walk away from those who repeatedly abuse your compassion. In fact, it is the wisest form of kindness to yourself. You are not called to drain yourself for people who refuse to change. By protecting your kindness with wisdom, you ensure that your energy, time, and love are invested where they can bear fruit. Wisdom also ensures that your kindness never compromises your values. Being kind does not mean agreeing with what is wrong. It does not mean staying silent in the face of injustice. Sometimes kindness requires confrontation, truth-telling, and standing firm even when it is uncomfortable. Wisdom shows you that kindness is not about avoiding conflict, but about addressing it with love and respect. It is about correcting without humiliating, guiding without controlling, and serving without losing yourself. Without wisdom, kindness can become naive, but with wisdom, kindness becomes transformative. Ultimately, kindness must be guided by wisdom because kindness is too precious to be wasted. It is a powerful resource that can heal wounds, build bridges, and inspire change, but only if it is applied with discernment. Wisdom ensures that kindness uplifts rather than enables, that it empowers rather than weakens, and that it creates respect rather than disrespect. The world does not just need more kindness, it needs wise kindness, the kind that knows when to be gentle and when to be firm, when to give and when to hold back, when to forgive and when to let go. Only then does kindness fulfill its true purpose.